Before we go into today's episode, we need to address something.
We do.
We take accuracy very seriously on this show. It's something we've spoken about since the beginning. The responsibility we feel toward the people who trust us with their time.
It's not something we take lightly.
It's not. And recently, as a result of listener correspondence, internal reviews, and some late nights going back through our notes, we've become aware of some errors across a number of episodes.
It's been a lot to sit with, honestly.
It has, but the right thing, the only thing, is to address them directly. So today, out of respect for our listeners in the United States and Germany and Ireland and Australia and everywhere else you find yourself when you press play on this show, today is a corrections episode.
Let's get into it.
We'll be working through these chronologically, by episode air date rather than historical period, which feels appropriate given what we're correcting.
We should note that this list is not exhaustive.
Exhausting, but not exhaustive.
I said exhaustive.
I was just saying that it's exhausting.
Well, gotcha. Okay.
It is not exhaustive. There were more. We prioritized the ones that we feel most responsible about, mostly Renee's. Let's begin. In our episode on Sears Modern Homes, we stated that the catalog kits were sold between 1908 and 1942. That is correct. We stand by that dating entirely.
Good, because that's accurate.
It is. However, in describing the assembly process, we implied that the homes were built primarily by the purchasing families themselves, often with help from neighbors and community members, a collective community-driven effort.
Which is the story we told, yes.
New research suggests that in a significant number of cases, a man named Gerald did most of it. He lived 2 streets over, he had the right tools, he had done it before, and frankly, he was available. We regret not mentioning Gerald.
We do.
Gerald, if you're listening, and we have reason to believe you might be, we see you. This one's for Gerald. In our Scopes trial episode, we described Clarence Darrow and William Jennings Bryan as intellectual opponents, 2 titans of their respective worldviews locked in a battle over science, religion, and the future of American education. We stand by that characterization.
It was one of the defining confrontations in American legal history.
It was, however, we failed to note that Bryan reportedly once challenged Darrow to an arm wrestling contest to settle the matter more directly.
Is that documented?
Bryan won. This changes nothing legally, nothing scientifically. The outcome of the trial is unaffected. However, we feel it changes the texture of the encounter in a way our listeners deserve to know, and we regret the submission.
You didn't answer my question.
Correction 3.
Oh, dear.
In our blood donation episode, we correctly attributed major advances in blood typing to Carl Landsteiner and transformative innovations in blood storage and plasma banking to Charles Drew. Both attributions stand. Both men deserve every word of credit we gave them.
Absolutely. That's a cornerstone episode for us.
It is. However, across the course of that single episode, we pronounced Carl Landsteiner's name in 4 distinct ways. 4. We counted.
Did we?
We want to assure our listeners that we have looked into the correct pronunciation. We are still looking.
We might have an update.
We will update you when we know. We appreciate your patience on this. In our episode on Operation Paul Bunyan, also a soon-to-be musical, the 1976 Cold War standoff centered on a poplar tree in the Korean demilitarized zone. We may have overemphasized the tree's role.
We described it as the catalyst for a major international incident.
We did, and while the tree was present and was ultimately involved, new information has come to our attention. A birch tree located approximately 40 meters to the northwest has come forward, through an intermediary claiming it was the actual instigator.
A birch tree has come forward.
We cannot verify this claim. We are not in a position to verify this claim. However, we feel it would be irresponsible to proceed without acknowledging that the claim has been made.
The tree came forward through an intermediary.
Yes.
Who is this intermediary?
We are not at liberty to say.
Gotcha.
Moving on.
Okay.
In our coverage of the Korean War, we referred to it as it is commonly and widely described as the Forgotten War. a conflict overlooked by history, absent from public memory, lacking the cultural footprint of the wars that bookend it.
Which is the standard historical framing, and it's accurate.
It is the standard framing. However, we have since received correspondence from listeners who do, in fact, remember the Korean War.
Well, it ended in 1953. There are living veterans.
Both of them wrote in.
Okay.
We want to apologize to both of them personally for suggesting it had been forgotten. They have not forgotten it. We should have been clearer that the forgetting is cultural and institutional, not universal.
I mean, that's a fair critique, honestly. We could have,
Both of them. 2 people remember the Korean War.
Okay.
In our coverage of the 1892 Homestead Strike, we described Carnegie Steel's deployment of Pinkerton agents as a show of force. 300 agents, barges. The workers met them armed, people died. We stand by show of force as an accurate description.
It was absolutely a show of force. I don't know what else you'd call it.
We have since received a letter from a descendant of one of the Pinkerton agents. His ancestor described the operation in a letter home to his wife as a show of confidence.
That's not a correction. That's one man's framing of an event he was personally involved in.
We're not sure this distinction matters in the grand scheme of things, but felt we should mention it.
It doesn't change anything.
No, and yet here we are.
Goodness.
In our Thanksgiving episode, we described the 1621 harvest gathering as, and I'm quoting our own episode here, a far cry from the harmonious feast often depicted. We examined the mythology, the power dynamics, the historical weight of what followed. We stand by that work.
It's important history, and we did it justice.
We believe so. However, we recently received a letter, handwritten, no return address.
Okay.
The letter insists the gathering was, and I'm quoting directly, actually very chill.
Who wrote this letter?
We cannot confirm the author's identity, but handwriting analysis places the script somewhere in the range of the mid to late 17th century.
Damn.
We are not correcting our characterization of the event. The letter does not change our position. We simply feel, as a matter of transparency, that our listeners should know the letter exists and that someone, or something, felt strongly enough to send it.
Something, all right.
We're open to all possibilities at this stage. In our episode on Grant's extraordinary display of accountability, a sitting president arrested, fined, sent on his way, we praised Grant for accepting the fine without invoking his office or his rank. We described this as a remarkable act of civic humility.
Which it was. It's a genuinely wonderful story.
It is. However, upon review, we may have been overly effusive with our characterization of Grant's emotional state. Specifically, we may have implied he was cheerful about it.
Did we?
Grant accepted the fine. He did not enjoy it. He was a man who had commanded armies, survived a war, and served as president, and he had just been fined for galloping his horse down a Washington street. He accepted the fine because it was right. He did not smile about it. We regret the implication of cheerfulness.
I genuinely don't think we implied that he was cheerful. I think we just said that he
was not cheerful about it.
Okay, whatever you say.
We want that on the record. In our coverage of the Lewis and Clark expedition, we described Sacagawea as indispensable to the success of the Corps of Discovery. An interpreter, a diplomat, a guide whose knowledge of the land and its peoples made the expedition viable. We stand by every word of that.
Absolutely. Her role cannot be overstated.
Agreed. However...
No.
I said agreed. However, we understated Clark's limitations as a co-commander in a way that allowed his contributions to appear more balanced than the record supports. Lewis handled the navigation, Lewis kept the journals, Lewis managed the diplomacy and the scientific observation. Lewis did the cooking on most nights.
I really don't think that...
Clark made a playlist.
Clark made a playlist?
It was a good playlist. Nobody said it wasn't a good playlist. We're simply saying that the historical record has, for 2 centuries, overcompensated. Going forward on this show, we will refer to the expedition as the Lewis Expedition featuring Clark.
We're not doing that.
We'll discuss it off air.
No.
We will discuss it off air.
No.
In our episode on the origin of the blues, we described the form as emerging from profound sorrow. from the hardship, displacement, and systemic suffering of Black Americans in the post-Reconstruction South. We framed it as music born of pain that transcended pain. We believed that then, we believe it now.
It's one of my favorite episodes we've done.
Mine too. However, one listener wrote in to tell us that the blues actually originated at a party.
No. A party?
We are not able to confirm this. We are also, in good conscience, not able to rule it out.
Yes, we are.
We have updated our internal notes. We are not changing the episode, but we want you, the listener, to know that the party theory exists, and that it came to us from someone who seemed very sure of themselves.
One person. Okay.
One very confident person.
Mhm.
Yes. In our sweeping series on the evolution of American education, a journey from indigenous oral tradition through to AI-powered learning environments, we traced the history of knowledge, power, and belonging across several centuries of American life. We stand by that work entirely.
It was some of our most thorough research.
It was. However, we failed at any point to note that cursive writing was invented specifically to slow children down.
That is not.
This is documented.
It's absolutely not documented. Dan, cursive development originally, organically came from.
We have a source.
What source?
A strong feeling.
Fine.
We regret the omission. In our heat wave episode, we described record-breaking temperatures sweeping across the Midwest, crop failures, community suffering, a reckoning with American disaster preparedness, a tragic, important episode.
It was. People died. It was a serious event.
People died, yes. However, we have since learned that one thermometer, in Tulsa, was in direct sunlight. It was reading approximately 12 degrees high.
One random thermometer?
Adjusting for this single thermometer in Tulsa, the heat wave was actually quite pleasant. The crops were largely fine. Everyone may have overreacted somewhat.
That's not... No. Dan, are any of these real?
Next correction. In our St. Nicholas episode, we described him as a historical figure, a 4th century Christian bishop known for his extraordinary generosity, the patron saint of children, sailors, and merchants. We built an entire episode around his life and legacy.
There is extensive historical documentation. He was a real person, Dan.
We have since been unable to definitely confirm this.
No.
We are treating the question of whether St. Nicholas existed as an open matter, pending further review.
Dan, he's in the historical record. There are
pending further review.
There are church records, Byzantine sources, scholars.
We appreciate the listener's patience as we work through the documentation.
I'm not a listener. I'm your co-host.
Moving on. In our episode on the history of beach culture, the transformation of this shoreline from a place of fear and superstition to an icon of leisure and liberation, we mentioned Coney Island as a pivotal site in the development of the American beach. This is correct.
It was a thorough episode. I enjoyed making that one.
It was your idea, too.
Mm-hmm.
Across the entire episode, I think it was inspired by Jaws.
Jaws. Love Jaws. Anyway.
Across the entire episode, which ran, I believe, nearly an hour, we did not once mention that sand gets everywhere.
That's not a historical error.
It's an omission. An experimental omission. Our listeners who visited beaches after that episode were not fully prepared.
I think people generally know that sand is...
We regret it. We wanted it on the record. We regret it. In our episode on the proposal to make George Washington king, we stated that Washington declined, firmly, unambiguously, and immediately. At a defining moment, a man offered absolute power who turned it down without hesitation.
Which is true. He wrote back immediately and was pretty blunt about it.
New correspondent suggests he declined, then thought about it for a bit, then declined again.
What new correspondence?
The outcome is the same. He declined. America got a republic. All this still happened. The timeline, however, is different. And we regret the implication of immediacy. He may have needed a moment that's human. We understand that now.
The historical records show that he wrote back within a...
He needed a moment, Renee. We're allowing him that. Let's move on. We have a number of smaller corrections to work through. I'll be moving quickly.
Excellent.
In our Triangle Shirtwaist Factory episode, we described the 1911 fire as a pivotal turning point in American labor law.
Yep.
Workers' rights and fire safety regulation. It was, however, in describing the factory's layout. We said the workers were on the 9th floor. Some workers were on the 8th floor. We regret the oversimplification of their vertical position. In our coverage of the 1844 Philadelphia Bible riots, The nativist violence triggered by disputes over which Bible would be read in public schools. We described the conflict as one of religious and ethnic tension. This is accurate. We failed, however, to note that the whole thing could have been resolved with a meeting. We regret not mentioning the meeting option.
That's not a correction. That's just a little
hindsight correction. It counts. We stated the Hamilton Bird Duel occurred in 1804. The year is correct. The month, however, was not July. It was a Tuesday. We regret specifying July.
Was it not a Tuesday in July?
In a separate reference
to
Coney Island, distinct from the beach cultural episode, we described it as a working-class escape. This is accurate. We did not note that the hot dogs are extremely good. This is not strictly a historical correction. We feel it is a human one. We regret the omission.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that one.
Thank you. Across our first 100 episodes, we used the word pivotal 63 times. Upon review, we believe 51 of those events were genuinely pivotal. We are not prepared to name the other 12 at this time, as it could cause unnecessary concern. They know who they are.
The events know who they are?
We believe so, yes.
Okay.
We also used the word riveting 47 times. 38 of those topics were genuinely riveting. We were auditing the remaining 9. No timeline to share at this point.
Okay.
In a passing reference across one of our early episodes, we described the American flag as having 13 original stripes.
Mm-hmm.
This is correct. We did not mention that there was a brief period during which the flag had 15 stripes and 15 stars, which is technically more stripes than it currently has. We feel Americans deserve to know this. We regret not making more of it.
What? Oh my gosh.
In our coverage of Manifest Destiny, we described it as a belief that American expansion westward was divinely ordained. This is correct. We did not note that this was not, in fact, confirmed by any divine authority we have been able to locate. We want to be transparent about the absence of a paper trail on that one.
Yes. That's the whole critique of Manifest Destiny. That's the whole point, the whole not being able to verify. Oh, good Lord.
We should have said it plainly. In our coverage of Alexander Graham Bell and the invention of the telephone, we did not mention that the first words ever spoken over telephone were, "Mr. Watson, come here. I want to see you." This is already widely known. We stand by not mentioning it. That was the right call. This is an anti-correction. We're including it for completeness.
An anti-correction?
Yes.
That's really not a thing.
It is now.
If you say so.
In any reference we have made to the Donner Party, and we want to be careful here, we describe the experience as harrowing. Upon reflection, harrowing may be insufficient. We are not correcting harrowing.
Harrowing. Can we correct that word now, though? Harrowing, not harrowing.
We are noting that harrowing is doing a lot of work in these sentences and probably deserves acknowledgement for the effort.
And to be pronounced correctly.
Finally, in our 100th episode, we described this show as having grown beyond our wildest expectations. Beyond anything we imagined when we started. Upon reflection, Renee had actually expected most of it.
No. I mean, I did. I had a spreadsheet at some point.
She had a spreadsheet from episode 6. Episode 6. She had projected listener growth, episode cadence, topic distribution, and approximate revenue across a 5-year horizon. The show is tracked within 4% of her projections.
4.2.
4.2%. We regret attributing the show's growth to wild expectations. It was largely project management. Renee's project management. We should have said so from the beginning.
Yes, you should have.
That concludes our corrections. We appreciate your patience today and your continued trust in us as we hold ourselves to the highest possible standards of historical accuracy. It's something we owe you.
It matters to us, genuinely.
It does, as always.
This podcast is a work of historical interpretation. While we strive for accuracy, some aspects of history are open to interpretation and debate. Thank you for listening. At what point do we say this is April Fool's? Because I think people might actually believe it. Because people are not the smartest.
You just told them.
Except our listeners. They're very smart. Oh my God.
No cheesy bye?
Bye. Save me.
I'm hitting stop.
Happy April Fool's Day, everyone. Yeah, you can hit stop.